Okay.
Okay.
Okay, this is a poem by Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Thank you, Maureen. This morning, we are proud to have two attorneys from the Florence Immigrant Rights Project, Maite Garcia and Roxana. And we also have Dora Rodriguez and Bob Key, who will give us an update on the Arizona border and Sasabe. Maite and Roxana, would you please tell us about the Florence Project and introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, thank you. I'm Roxana Avila Campanu, managing attorney at the Florence Project. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all for your interest and for having us here today and allowing us to share our work, which is ever critical, and just having an opportunity to speak and share that information. So we've actually prepared a presentation. So I'll be going ahead and flipping over to that. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see the presentation? Just to double check my tech here. Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'm, like I said, Roxana Avila Campanu. I manage the pro bono program on our children's program. And I also have with me today Maite Garcia, who is the interim pro bono managing attorney for our adult program. So we'll be just giving you today a little bit of an overview about our work and what's sort of happening today. So we're going to be, let me move this out of the way. Talking today, just a little introduction about who we are and what we do. Presentation on the children's program, our social services program, and then Maite will describe our adult program, our advocacy program, our pro bono program, and our border action team. And then we'll also at the end give you a little snippet of what the broad picture of challenges looks like in this moment in time, and also how you can get involved. So the Florence Project is a nonprofit legal service provider. We provide free legal and social services to detained immigrant men, women, and children who are under the threat of deportation. We like to always think that about this, that our clients are strong, resilient individuals who inspire us every day. So on the screen, you can see some pictures of some of the clients that we've helped in their various cases. On any given day in Arizona, over 5,000 immigrants are held in detention facilities. Nearly 1,900 of those are under the age of 18. Now, because detained immigrants facing deportation don't have the right to a public defender, it makes things very complicated. It's a complex system to understand for anyone. Without legal representation, it's very possible that many of these folks will lose their case and be sent back to conditions which they might be fleeing. And for some folks, this could be a death sentence. They're really facing something very serious and scary. So you can see here in this map that in Phoenix, there are maybe around 1,400 kids in Phoenix. And then Eloy, La Palma, Florence, FCC are the adult detention centers. So you can see the numbers there. And then the Tucson Children's Program also has some shelters there. So in 2019, we served over 7,000 people, 5,600 children, 5,000 detained adults, Our border action team also assisted over 1,000 migrants in Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, in partnership with the Kino Border Initiative. Our pro bono team placed 101 cases, and we also helped 220 family separation cases. On top of that, we do have an excellent, amazing social services team who provided much needed support to many of these clients. So this is one of our clients, Jade, and so I just wanted to share this video. She won her asylum case, and now she can dance free.
Unfortunately, we're not hearing the audio, but it's a
Oh,
beautiful dance.
thank you. The captions, luckily, I hope help us in this situation.
Yes, they
I can
do.
send you all the link.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that video of how they dancing. This is something that all of us on staff, we just love watching this over and over again, because just to see, you know, the freedom with which Jade is now able to express herself through dance and just in her life has been something really special to be a part of, you know, a small part of this journey for her. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the Florence Project. We were established in 1989, so we have over 30 years of existence. And it really started as a pro bono project when one of the attorneys here in Phoenix really saw a need for this work and took a sabbatical and established the Florence Project through that experience. In 1988, we expanded work to the Eloy Detention Center and also started the Pro Se development model, which Maite will describe to us a little bit later. In 2000, we expanded to provide legal services to detained unaccompanied immigrant minors. In 2001, we established our integrated social services program to really provide more wraparound services for our clients because they are humans and have many different needs. And so that's a really important part of the case also, is providing the social services. From 2007 to 2012, we ran the Arizona Defending Immigrants program, which was a program where we consulted with public defenders to really educate them about the immigration consequences of criminal convictions, which really go hand in hand. In 2013, the Franco Gonzalez decision came out, which compelled appointed counsel for individuals deemed incompetent. And we started our National Qualified Representative, or NQRP program. So those are our attorneys who are appointed as attorneys for these clients. Between 2014 and 2019, we saw tremendous growth from 21 employees to 96 employees, and we continue to grow. We're very thankful to be able to expand our services and the number of folks that we can help in these situations. In 2014, maybe you heard in the news, there was an increase in unaccompanied minors crossing the border. And we also opened our Tucson Children's Program office. And we began providing social and legal services to children who had been in ORR custody and then were released to a sponsor here in Arizona. In 2015, we expanded social services team. In 2016, the development team was established and continues to grow. And in 2016, immigration rhetoric was in full swing due to the presidential campaign. So it really got into the conversation, daily conversation. In 2016, Trump takes office, and this is the beginning of the Sessions era. So that was Trump's attorney general. We saw attacks on DACA, the end of administrative closure options, which was really a relief for folks in deportation proceedings that allowed them to basically get more time to apply for relief. The end of ARCG, which essentially was a case that gave protections to victims of domestic violence. It was a very difficult after that for women and children and men who had experienced domestic violence to win asylum. And also in 2016, we expanded our direct representation for adults. So we started our KBI partnership. We also did a fellowship with PLAN, which is the Phoenix Legal Action Network, and their goal is to assist released adults in Phoenix. And we also hired an asylum attorney. In 2017, we continued to expand our representation for adults. And that summer, we all remember on our staff, we had the asylum circuit ride where the asylum office scheduled 300 of our kids for asylum interviews between May and September. So it was all hands on deck, and we really worked hard that summer. In 2018, we started seeing a rise in family separation, and we provided legal and social services for hundreds of parent-child separation cases, and we also hired a team to meet that need. And we also saw some sexual assault cases at one of the shelters. In 2019, the La Palma Detention Center opened, which effectively doubled the adult detention population here in Arizona. And we also expanded the LOP DART, which is the Legal Orientation and Direct Services Program. We continue to expand the social services team. And then EOIR, which is the Immigration Court, began doing virtual dockets. And we advocated against this because of the due process violations that come with that. And finally, in 2020, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, we began doing fully remote work. On top of that, the deportation machine continued to roll full speed ahead. And we also saw Title 42, which allowed the government to basically prevent folks from coming in and asking for relief. So that's a little bit of our history. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about our children's program, which is where I work. And so our population is unaccompanied immigrant minors. So these are children under 18 who have crossed the border or have been apprehended by ICE inside the country and who don't have a parent or guardian to care for them. On any given night in Phoenix, in Tucson, there are about 1,400 unaccompanied minors in the shelters. Why are they coming? There are many reasons why a child would come to the United States, fleeing gang violence, maybe they're fleeing abuse at home, fleeing partner violence, maybe they're coming to live with a parent who they haven't seen in a really long time, maybe they're fleeing extreme poverty, maybe it's a combination of these things. So there are a lot of reasons why a child would want to make this journey. The majority of the children we serve come from Central America and Mexico, but we certainly see children from all over the world. Most of the kids we see are from Central America and Mexico, so Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and Mexico. That's the big bulk. And on top of that, a big portion of the Guatemalan clients are also indigenous Guatemalan children. And so that's also a significant population that we serve. For the children, we provide Know Your Rights presentation and conduct individual legal screenings for them. We do this every week at every shelter. We just want to make sure that we are a point of contact with them to explain to them this complicated, scary system, and also be able to chat with them to see, what they could possibly apply for some sort of relief. We also advocate against complaints against Customs and Border Protection regarding abuses that the children have suffered there, and also these family separation cases. For detained children who don't have reunification options or who don't have a family or relative that they can go live with safely, we provide direct legal representation for them. So for these kids, the most common types of visas we apply for are the Special Immigrant Juvenile Visa, which is a humanitarian visa for children who have been abused, abandoned, or neglected. Asylum, which is a visa for folks who fear return because of persecution in their countries. And then the T and U visas, the T for children who were trafficked, and the U visa for children who have been victims of a crime here in the United States. So for those kids, we help them apply for relief. Children who are reunified, maybe they go live with a sister in Connecticut. For those children, we're not able to provide legal representation, but we do also give them referrals. We also represent children who were in shelters in other states and were reunified to relatives here in Arizona. We also conduct friend of court assistance, so we cannot represent every single child who comes through the system, but we are able to provide friend of court assistance or detained children. So when they go to their court hearings, we're able to give the judge information about their cases to help him make a decision about the child's deportation case. We also advocate for their access to medical needs, education, communication with family members, and whatever other service a child may need while they're detained. So we're really there just making sure their rights are being met. We also do referrals for victims of human trafficking. And as I mentioned before, we do legal referrals when a child reunifies with somebody in another state. And we're still conducting these things remotely just for everybody's safety, and we just figured out a way to make it work. Additionally, we have our integrated social services program, which is very critical to our work. So their population clientele is clients with mental health issues, unaccompanied children who are aging out of custody, clients with medical issues, parents who have children in DCS custody, vulnerable populations, asylum seekers, and minors who need access to services. So the team is our social services manager, and then the adult and children's program each have their own social workers. And on top of that, the adult program has a special mental health social workers. We also have interns in our program. So this is a photo of them at our Christmas party. And you can see the little doggy Bonnie there is our emotional support dog as well in the office.
Oh.
The social services program works across all our programs. So in our children's program, they assist clients in getting services such as Social Security and asylum benefits, help them access education, help them get medical or dental or counseling. For our clients who are pregnant or new mothers, they provide assistance for them, diapers, education, clothes, housing placements for children who have nowhere to live, and also case management for clients who are aging out of the shelter system. And they also put on client events. So we used to do a client appreciation event where we would just go and celebrate with the kids and not force them to talk about the difficult things that they've gone through. So they really are there. They also, are thinking about the client's needs at all times. On the adult program side, they identify concerns and write indicials of incompetency. So these are things that can help the adult clients in their cases. They follow up with clients who have mental health or suicidality concerns. They do medical advocacy, and they follow up and coordinate with parents who have children in DCS custody. So this would be maybe a family living here in Arizona and the parents get picked up, the kids go to DCS, so they would help those parents coordinate with the DCS. And they also connect clients with services upon their release. For the NQRP program, they identify services and create plans for release, and they also support clients who are in segregation, who need medication management, and also help them complete declarations. They also do ongoing case management post-release for these mental health cases. And on top of that, they're just amazing for us. They give us trainings, they do program development, community outreach. They help us figure out what resources there are here. And they also do advocacy. So they're really, a heart and soul across all of our programs. So that's all for those two. So I'm going to flip it over to Maite to talk a little bit about the adult programs.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm Maite Garcia. I'm currently acting as an interim pro bono manager for the adult program, but my role the rest of the year is adult pro bono mentor. I also spent some time on the children's team and then did some direct representation on our adult programs. So our adult program is divided in two subsections. The first is really our first line of defense, which is the detention action and response team. And that is the model that Roxana mentioned when she was going through the history that the Florence Project is originally founded on, which is the pro se model that I'll talk about in a little bit. And those are folks that conduct your rights presentations in the detention centers, in all 4 detention centers. And then they conduct mini legal interviews to ultimately provide pro se assistance, as well as refer to our next subsection, which is our direct representation program. The direct representation program is made up of several different subject matters, including the mental health team that serves individuals that have been deemed incompetent by the court, and an asylum attorney or asylum team, as well as just general representation for various matters that may come up during the course of a representation of an adult in detention. So those are kind of the framework which the adult team, fits in. Our client population is, as it says here, mostly detained. We really focus on detained work because it is an incredibly difficult environment, right? These folks are dealing with a cultural, education, oftentimes barrier, and navigating an incredibly complex system. All the while they're sitting in what is effectively a prison without access to the outside world, to oftentimes funds to hire a private attorney. So our focus is detained work for that reason. The exception to that rule is when we are appointed counsel under the National Qualified Representative Program, or for folks that are deemed incompetent, then our representation will follow that individual upon their release. And if they're completely out of our jurisdiction, then they would be appointed counsel elsewhere. So that representation attaches while they're detained, but then follows them. So it's a really important benefit that, that our involvement, including social services, Roxana mentioned they do, they help with indicia of incompetency. That really is the first step, right? To us being able to identify to the court that somebody may have mental health symptoms that doesn't allow them to represent themselves. So on any given day, we have 1,800 adults detained in Arizona. And again, those are the 4 facilities that are listed here are who we serve. And then these are the 4 courts that we appear before, the 3 courts really that we appear before. And then when we have non-detained cases, they could be in Phoenix or Tucson. And again, sometimes even in other courts, depending on where it is, we will stay on the case if it was a part of the National Qualified Representative Program. So the pro se model is really a model that is based on empowering and educating the clients so that they can represent themselves. It is, as mentioned, kind of the foundation of the Florence Project, and was then later adopted, some of our practices adopted as a part of the overall DOJ, Department of Justice, legal orientation program. And so the model begins with the interaction with the Florence Project in detention through a Know Your Rights presentation, followed by a short legal consult to assist that person in identifying what, if any, defenses they have to deportation, and then is followed by varying degrees of services. Sometimes it's a referral to our direct representation team because the person is particularly vulnerable and could really benefit from counsel, meaning direct counsel, somebody entering in on their case. And sometimes it's just a matter of providing them with a lot of samples and models to allow them to fill out their applications, present evidence, we'll supply them with country conditions or research, and then we'll provide them orientations prior to their hearing dates to assist them in kind of practicing and really knowing what to say to the judges. You know, from our numbers, the numbers are astronomical. And so there's just no way for us to enter on every single case. So this is a way to address the need and really educate folks so that they're really armed with that knowledge before they go into court. You know, instead of just saying, well, we're only going to be able to represent this small group of individuals. So that is the solution for the time being. So I've talked a little bit about this already, but we provide the general orientations. When we were in person, we were doing larger group workshops to prepare people, really walk through an asylum application or a bond hearing or cancellation of removal. And then we provide these individual orientation and follow-up visits to assist them, as well as then referring them to pro bono placement. And this is, of course, internal and external. You know, Roxana and I's team is responsible for placing with external partners. But as mentioned, we now have a direct representation team that is pretty robust that also takes on cases. Sorry, just one more thing on how we're providing it, because I see the note on. We're currently providing these services remotely. The way it's been working since the pandemic is we recorded some videos. So instead of going in person to do Know Your Rights presentation, there are videos that are played, both on explaining custody proceedings and their ultimate case. And then we have a hotline that we run and folks man to attend to the calls and have sort of these individual orientations. And then, of course, the representation on direct representation has been occurring throughout the pandemic, although it has presented a lot of challenges that we'll talk about a little bit later to representation as a whole, but it continues to work, you know, in a remote capacity. Our advocacy team also wears many hats. They are both in appellate representation and federal district court litigation arm, if you will, of the organization, as well as handling media outreach. And we also partner with other organizations to provide, for example, amicus briefing on things that are proposed changes or, you know, lawsuits that I think will have a national impact. We provide amicus briefing on those. We also provide comments when, you know, the federal government is trying to rule change in a way that will affect our clients. The advocacy team works to draft comments to that and make sure that our perspective as providers on the ground is considered, right? When we're talking about changing the rules, we really want to think about the real applications to the folks that we serve. So that's a little bit about the advocacy team. And then, of course, we've been featured on a lot of different outlets, which has been really great. It was not something that I think traditionally the Florence Project did, because we really like to focus and center on our clients. But I think family separation in particular really highlighted the need for us to sort of be witnesses to what was happening on the ground and be that voice for our clients. So on our pro bono program, I've already touched on it a little bit, but both on the adult and kids team, the mission really is to expand our reach and provide services to more individuals by reaching out to legal members of the community that partner with us to provide pro bono representation. So that looks everything from a solo practitioner to a private, you know, a large firm that may partner with us to provide, you know, services to our clients, while we maintain, we mentor and we kind of track the case very, very closely and, you know, assist throughout the case as well. But using their resources really allows us to expand who we can. So on the adult team, it looks like this is just a breakdown of the teams: the managing attorney, a pro bono mentor, which is me, a legal assistant, and a volunteer coordinator. And then on the on the children's team, we have Roxana, who's the managing attorney, 2 pro bono mentors, 2 legal assistants, and then again, the volunteer coordinator assists in that. We also conduct a number of trainings and just community engagement, kind of like we're doing this morning, right, with you all, and to really get information out there about not just our work but our clients and what their lived experiences are. Yeah. And then I think this is the last team we're covering. So the Border Action Team functions out of Nogales, Sonora, and they are a binational team that serves individuals who are getting ready to present at a port of entry in Nogales. And others. I believe they've actually expanded, and they're not just in Nogales now, and they're kind of serving several points of entry. So they provide orientations and know your rights in Mexico to assist people in understanding kind of what they're facing up ahead, right? And that's everything from the actual legal cases to, what would happen if somebody is detained. So that team is expanding rapidly because, things are very sort of rapidly moving at the border, and a number of policy changes enacted when the administration switch creates a significant need at our borders. So that team is a managing attorney, an EJW fellow, 2 legal assistants, and I believe they have a full team of interns this summer, which is really exciting, and are expanding. And that is a partnership with Kino Border Initiative. So they work in collaboration with them in providing these Know Your Rights presentations at their Comedor, which is basically like a food soup kitchen, right, for folks, for migrants that are passing through Nogales, as well as housing and things like that. They provide pro se services, and then once the individual, though on a smaller scale, they're able to sort of follow the individual as after they've presented. If they are detained, then KBI, rather Border Action Team, would potentially enter on that case and represent them. So they would have met them all the way in Nogales and then kind of followed their case throughout their time in detention as well. So these are just some of the challenges that I think are probably the most pertinent today facing asylum seekers at our border. So MPP, although Remain in Mexico Migrant Protection Protocol was ended by the Biden administration, there is a lot of ripple effects that continue, right? So there's a lot of sort of messy cases that were a part of the Migrant Protection Protocol that now have a messy procedural posture in court that now folks are having to sort through. So for example, if somebody was in my MPP Remain in Mexico and they were told to appear for their court date in they were living in Juarez, let's say, or being told to remain in Juarez, and then they were presenting for their court date in El Paso, there are hundreds and hundreds of stories of migrants who suffered everything from an assault to a kidnapping that never made it to their court date, and now they have a removal order, but now they've presented and they're in the United States. So what do we do with that removal order, right? And so there's these sort of messy procedural histories that the attorneys representing them are now having to deal with. Not to mention the slow sort of metering of folks that were in that program and were subjected to that policy now trickling into the United States after having waited a very, very long time. So there's some challenges surrounding that. There's the asylum cooperative and third country agreements. Those remain in place. So while we've seen changes and shifts in policy since the Biden administration took office, some of this stuff still remains. Additionally, Title 42, which, the Customs and Border Patrol and ICE really double down on that this is not an immigration policy, that this is a health policy coming out of the CDC. This was a Trump era policy that has remained in place, and it is in place to this day, that basically results in individuals being turned away due to public health reasons. Despite that being the reason, the way that it plays out, because I know oftentimes when I've talked to folks that don't do this work, they'll say, well, public health, right? Like shutting down, doesn't that kind of make sense? And it's like, except for the way that it's being applied is completely disingenuous in that people that are placed in Title 42, which is basically an expedited expulsion, right? Removal from the United States, are actually brought into the country and placed in detention centers, not given proper due process or procedural safeguards at all, no access to counsel. And then after being in a congregate setting, they're returned. So it's actually, if the reason really is public health, and that's that's what we're touting, that it's in practice, that's not what's happening. And in fact, they are being brought in under the legal fiction that they're not in the United States just to be expelled without any sort of opportunity to advocate for themselves in an asylum proceeding. And then, of course, there's the fact that it is contradictory to our obligations under certain conventions, right, to accept asylum seekers. So that's a little bit about Title 42. It remains a very difficult challenge. And then I just like to note that obviously this is something that would be ripe for litigation on the federal level, but is difficult to do because the people that are subjected to it are kind of in the shadows, right? Like we don't know about them, we can't access them, and then they're rapidly removed before we're even able to get their story or understand what happened. And then that was sort of, I think, an overview of what's happening more at the border. In detention, COVID-19, obviously, undoubtedly, the last year and change has been a huge challenge. Notwithstanding the cases, of course, the actual COVID cases and the health crisis that it has created in detention, it has also resulted in significant delays in conducting credible fear interviews, which is a precursor to someone's asylum case. They need to pass the credible fear interview to be able to jumpstart the actual deportation proceeding in which they can apply for asylum, as well as delay in the proceedings in general. So, I remember very vividly last summer was sort of a nightmare of epic proportions when it came to representing people, because I would have a hearing, a final hearing, which is basically a trial, right? A bench trial with a judge, and perhaps prepared for months, only to be told at 4:30 the day before that I wasn't going to move forward the next day. And so you're expending a lot of resources planning, not to mention our clients who are sitting there sort of just waiting, and you have nothing in terms of comforting words to give them, because you yourself are sort of in the dark of when things will proceed. And of course, that was triggered by, somebody's in quarantine, or there was a case, so now the court is closed, and just the uncertainties that came along with keeping the courts open. And then, of course, lack of access to counsel services and family. There has not been family visitation in detention, and that is really soul shattering for a lot of these folks. They're sitting there alone and isolated, and now they can't see their families. And of course, because attorneys have been, and certainly the Florence Project has, rightfully so, been conservative about us returning to the detention centers and exposing ourselves and our clients in the community, we too have had limited access. So unless somebody is able to sort of get through our hotline, it limits us. Whereas before, I might find myself in a detention center and somebody might flag me, right? And just say like, hey, are you with Florence Project? And I said, yes, I am, and then I could pass along the contact information for them to be able to go to orientation. And then finally, rapid legal changes. There's harmful lasting case law, absolutely. Even to this day, we are seeing changes. So I'm hopeful that we'll see more as time goes on. That said, even when things are changing for the better, oftentimes the way it's applied can be chaotic. So I say often, which sounds very sort of Debbie Downer for a little bit, but sometimes when we win, we still lose, and that it happens in a way that just it creates chaos, even though it's good. And eventually, hopefully things settle out, but those rapid and constant changes create issues and procedural messes, honestly, on the legal side. So we're still dealing with that. The most recently, another challenge in detention is that Franco Gonzalez, who are the individuals that are deemed incompetent or should be deemed incompetent and be awarded counsel, have been rapidly released due to a federal litigation that mandated the release of anybody with comorbidities. That is absolutely the right result. However, what's been happening is these Franco Gonzalez folks, so let's say somebody who has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, they're released before they've been designated by the court, and thus they're not awarded counsel. So if they don't get that designation and that counsel appointed in detention, they're no longer eligible for counsel. So they're released into the world without an attorney or a social worker, right, to monitor their case. And that has had pretty drastic and harmful consequences since, as I've indicated, our mandate is detained work. So we have these folks that kind of fall in this in-between that we're not really sure what to do with. And then last but certainly not least, an adversarial system, right? So the same folks that worked under prior administrations continue to do the work today. on these things. So you can imagine that while there are these policy changes, it takes a while to really trickle down to the folks on the ground and for their teams to go, oh, okay, there's new mandates in place and now we need to react off of this. So despite changes, we continue to see sort of slow and sometimes non-existent changes to the way that these cases are administered and the way that our opposing counsel, Department of Homeland Security, handles these matters.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the challenges that are facing immigrant children specifically. So a lot of the things that Maite mentioned also carry over to the children's cases. Unfortunately, that is a pattern. There are a lot of instances where the children are being treated as if they were adults who should be expected to understand everything. And so it's been very challenging. The first thing I'm going to cover is access to representation. So this is something that goes along the lines of what Maite was discussing under the Title 14. So you might have seen news articles where they discuss that children are being, instead of sent to the shelters where there are licensed professionals who are able to care for them, they are actually being held in hotels. And then because of that, they are not able to see an attorney and they are sent back home without having the chance to speak with an attorney or a legal representative to help them understand the process or to screen them for relief or be able to just explain to them, hey, what's happening. So this is very challenging because as you can tell from today's presentation, this system is very complex, it's very challenging, it's difficult, and to try to explain that to a child is an even greater obstacle. And on top of that, many of our children come from very rural areas. They may only speak an indigenous Guatemalan language, they've never had contact with an attorney. So just even explaining what the justice system is or what a court is something that's very basic that we're not able to do if these children are being expelled because of this public health law. The second challenge is the Florist settlement agreement. So this is an agreement that came from litigation where the government now has to provide safeguards to children. So this includes making sure that they are taken care of and that they're provided certain rights. So for example, that they have food, shelter, education, access to counsel. So the government in the last 4 years had been challenging the safeguards in the Florist settlement, and the TVPRA, which is the Trafficking Victim Protection Reauthorization Act, which also gave children certain legal protection. So there has been some pushback on the government side to those safeguards and those legal protections that are given to children. Finally, adversarial system. This is an adversarial system. It's harder for children to get relief because of some of the things Maite also mentioned. The rapid legal changes, it's very challenging to catch up on those and sort of adjust at a moment's notice. A lot of the things that were implemented in the last 4 years, unfortunately, is not an easy fix. You can't just, do an executive order and undo all the damage that has been done because it was so consistent and relentless, and they very much used case law and legal systems to really cement these changes. So it's a question of undoing all the harm and then also managing the children's cases based on where we are now. It's also it has been more challenging to advocate for children's release on their 18th birthday. So when a minor is held in a detention shelter, they can only stay there until they turn 18. When they turn 18, according to the government, they're magically adults. And so they could be transferred to an adult detention center, such as those in Florence and Eloy. When we take on a client's case, of a child's case, one of our goals for that case plan is to prevent them from going to adult detention. And so we will find a sponsor, a relative, a friend who can vouch for them and take care of them when they turn 18. And so we'll make a request to the government to, instead of sending this kid to adult detention, which is really prison, if we're thinking about it just on a day-to-day basis, that they be released to the sponsor or relative who can take care of them and they can continue on with their case. So in the past 4 years, it has been more challenging to get the government to agree. We saw more children going to adult detention, I think, than ever before, at least in my time at the Florence Project. So it has been more challenging. Also, the government had started a policy of collecting the information of these sponsors. So that kind of caused a chilling effect because we had maybe, an uncle who was really willing to take care of a kid, but the uncle got scared because ICE would then have their information, and a lot of the relatives themselves are also working on their own immigration cases. So it's been very challenging. We also have COVID-19 challenges like everyone in the world. For us, it's just been very challenging to do this work because working with children, it's very, sensitive. So you want to be able to see them and build rapport and be able to check in with them. And that's sometimes very difficult to do through video. So we've been making do with video, presentations and video meetings and, making sure that we're touching base with them and answering their questions, making sure they're getting, what they need. But it's very challenging to do that all through a computer screen. So that's been difficult. And then on top of that, on the legal side, on one end, things have been very delayed, and on the other hand, the deportation cases were really speeding through, and they were not being given certain grace because of the pandemic to, have the time they need to apply for relief. And finally, family separation, unfortunately, is out of the news, but it is still happening. So that's something that we continue to monitor and assist with. So those are just some of the settings. I think generally the main theme is there was a lot of damage done to the system. It was already complicated to begin with. It wasn't designed with children in mind. And so we just have a lot of managing to do and learning and strategizing, always keeping in mind we work with children. So that was sort of a summary of what we do and sort of some of the most recent challenges and things that we've been seeing. So I wanted to share a couple of things that you could do if you're interested. You could get involved. So we do have volunteers, are not just pro bono attorneys. So we have volunteers of all sorts. So, if you speak another language, we're always in need of interpreters and translators. Just hired this volunteer coordinator last year, so we're really looking towards really harnessing the interest that's out there. So if you are interested, you can email volunteer@ferp.org. You can also raise awareness. I don't know if some of these things were surprising to you today. I think that's something that I find very common when I speak to folks about our work is they're like, I can't believe this is happening. What about due process? It's very hidden, and it's not, like I said, it's not in the news anymore. So it's really important to raise awareness about these issues. So sharing our work, sharing our website, sharing this information is very helpful to show people, what the system looks like. So you can go to our website at it's ferp.org, and you can also email us at ferp.org if you want a presentation or anything else. Also on our website, ferp.org, you can sign up for a newsletter. I'm actually subscribed to the newsletter as well. And I really just enjoy getting that, periodic information about what our organization is doing, what's happening. I know we post like Mother's Day posts, or we talk about client wins, we talk about things that are going on. So if you're interested, that's definitely a good place to sign up. You can also join the Detention Watch Network. So if you join them, they also will give you updates on what's happening in this world. And finally, donate. So if you have the ability to donate money, that is very helpful. So just to give you an idea of what impact that can have, we have our budgets, but if we get donations that are not tied to specific things, we're really able to expand our services. So for example, I mentioned earlier that when we had that huge rash of family separation, we were able to hire a specialized team to be able to help those parents and children who were separated. Right now, we are very, very excited that we're going to be starting a trafficking team on the children's program. So this will be a group of attorneys and legal assistants who will be focused on children who have been trafficked to the United States or in the United States. So it's going to be very, special for us to start that program dedicated specifically to that population. And we were able to do it because of donations. And so it really has a big impact on the work, and it really allows us to be able to expand services, hire more social workers, just whatever is happening, we can then adjust to it without being tied to a specific budget. So those are all the ways that you can get involved. And as I don't know if you can tell, Maite and I love talking about our work and our jobs. And so we're always happy to have these conversations. If you have a question after today, here are our emails, and I will also send this presentation to you all if you want to keep it. But you can visit us at FERC.org or email us if you have questions. And we're always happy to chat about this very important work. So that's the end of our presentation. So if we have some questions, we're happy to answer some.
Is Mary Jane on? And let me just step in if that's okay, because I think Mary Jane's video is off, so she might be having connectivity problems. So first of all, on behalf of the Latin American and Caribbean Committee of the Loreto community, I just want to give a huge thanks to both of you and your organization and others like Bob and Dora who are doing this work. The energy that you're portraying in this presentation is really incredible, but we know that this work is so draining. So first of all, kudos to both of you and your teams for doing this incredibly valuable work. So we're so grateful to have you here, and know that we have a small group here, pequeño pero potente. We have there's a lot of ripple effect to this work that we're doing in terms of volunteers, donations, the watch program. So thank you so much. I mean, I think one of the questions that comes up for me is, aside from, some of these programmatic questions, is, what do you do to just fuel yourself, and continue to just recharge and do this work day in, day out. I mean, just, towards the end of your presentations, when you're talking about the work and the challenges working with children and the families and doing this online, that really just emphasized what hard work this is and how draining it could be. So would love to hear a little bit about that personal side, and your stories, as well as I'm sure other people are going to have stories as well, and questions. We have Dora and Robert and Bob also to share, but maybe we can just take these couple minutes just to have you kind of reflect on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I can start, Maite, if that's okay. Thank you so much for those comments. We really appreciate that. I think this work can sometimes feel very isolating. We're the only legal service provider in the whole state of Arizona that is working with these detained clients. And so it can feel very isolating. So it's very, re-energizing for us to speak with community groups and folks outside of our organization to really share this information and know that there are folks out there who are on our side. So that really does mean a lot to us. I think that's, very important. I think maybe you can see I personally do a little bit of compartmentalizing, and that's something that's very important. So if I can share a little bit about my personal story, I'm from Honduras. So I was born in Honduras, where many of our clients are from, and I actually was very lucky. My father got a scholarship to study in the United States, and he moved here and he met my stepmother and they got married, and he brought me here when I was 6 years old, and I just remember eating KFC the first night and seeing snow. Like, that's my immigration journey. I had to do nothing for it. But I still have my whole family there. I'm actually working on bringing my mother right now. So for me, just knowing that it's all about luck, and where you were born, it's all about luck. And if you're able to come here the right way, it's about luck. For me, that's what really fueled me into this work. And working with children specifically, it's very special to work with that population for me, because we're able to, I think of myself as a little girl in Honduras and how my life would have been if I wasn't given the opportunities that I have. So to be able to meet with these children and see what their lives are like and how resilient they are, and learn about their hopes and dreams and goals, and being, like I said, a small part of allowing them to get to a place where they can be children again, where they can start thinking about their education and planning, thinking not just about working and surviving, but, it's kind of like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? They've been focused so much on survival and food and housing, and we're able to get them to a place where they can start moving up in that pyramid and thinking about their future and their education, their goals. So I always like to say, I have a client right now. I started with the Florence project 5 years ago. We have a client right now who just got his green card after 5 years. And I think back to when he first started with us, where he, didn't know English, and he just had been working all his life, basically wasn't able to go to school. And now he, 5 years later, has his green card. He is starting his own roofing company. He has a little baby. He just bought a house. He's looking to become an architect, and it's just so different. And we were able to be part of that journey where now he's, thinking about those hopes and dreams in the future. And it just gives me chills to talk about it. And even when we don't stay with our clients for 5 years, like if we just help them and they go live in New Jersey with a relative, we're this little part of their lives where we were able to be there for them, accompany them through this very challenging process, and get them on this path, even if we're not there at the end. So I think that's what really fuels me to keep going. You're very right. It's very challenging to do this work. If you go on our website, we recently just published a booklet on family separation. And I think it's really good to look at because it shows our experiences working with very young children. We've had clients, children in the shelters as young as 6 months. I've had clients who have given birth in the detention centers. And so working with children that are that young is very difficult. And it's very painful to see, I remember during family separation, I colored so many coloring books because we would go in there and color with them and play with them and really, try different methods of child-friendly ways to get information from them. With family separation, you ask them, what is your parents' name? And they say, mommy. They say, papi. And so it's very challenging to do that. But we just remember the mission and the goal in the end. We rely on each other in tough times. We really work as a team and share information. And I'm just really grateful to my coworkers always for, I've had a rough day. Let me tell you what happened, or can you believe this? That kind of thing. So I feel like I've talked a lot, so I'll let Maite have a say too. But thank you so much for that question.
Lovely personal story. Thank you, Roxana. Maite, let's hear from you.
So I think I'm sometimes fueled by something that's a little bit more negative in that I actually feel rage towards things that I feel aren't fair. Like, I've realized over time I have this volatile reaction to what I perceive to be a non-even playing field. And to be honest, like that is definitely a motivator, is that I get really enraged. And a lot of times find myself apologizing to our clients saying, I'm really sorry about the broken promises. I'm sorry about the promise that this country gave and put out there and the fact that we're not meeting it. So in my mind, sometimes I feel like that's my motivator, is trying to even the playing field and really going, this, it's not fair. And we need to make good on this, and I think that sometimes is a motivator. I also am a product of immigrant families. My mom is Cuban, my dad is Venezuelan, and that makes up right now the majority of the people in detention. So I've also am motivated by the fact that I can't help, my dad is one of 9. I can't help 8 of his elder siblings that ended up in Venezuela during their retirement and can't migrate. But I can't help the individuals that are sitting there now. And I couldn't help my family in the 1960s when they left Cuba, but I can help the folks that are sitting there now. And independent of where they're from, I completely agree and echo what Roxana says, which is the system just continues to highlight how arbitrary it is, and these lines that we draw because you're from here or you're from there. Even now, as we grant temporary protected status to the Venezuelan people, we say, yes, you can come if you entered on this day and you happen to be here. But if you entered past this date, you are a part of the deportation machine, as well as your family that you left behind. So we continue to implement things like that, and that, for lack of a better way of saying it, or a nice way of putting it, enrages me. And so that definitely helps in getting up. And then how I think we take care of, how I take care of myself or separate things is I do find that I have an ability to bifurcate and come home and be present with my family, although, some days are harder than others. And I rely on a really, really wonderful and strong family and friend group, as well as my fabulous colleagues who make it so easy in difficult times like that to find solidarity. Because especially the last 4 years where I turn to other friends who don't do what I do, obviously, and do other things. And they often reach out to me for solidarity because they're like, I look around my office or my workplace and I feel alone. I'm watching really terrible things happen. And I don't know that I can sit there and commiserate with the person in the next, office over, but that's not true for me. I get to really lean on them too for moments of frustration and moments where, you don't want to feel alone in this work. So I think that right about sums up what makes me get up in the morning.
Thank you so much. Know that you are not alone. We are with you in solidarity and prayer and sending good energy your way. So definitely. And as Mary Jane, I stepped in here. Can I ask Dora, because I see Dora nodding for so many comments. Can I ask you, and obviously we're going over a bit, and thank you for indulging in this. Dora, can we ask you about your personal story and about the work you're doing? And I see you have a colleague as well, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the I am humbled to be part of this group. I know it's a lot of wonderful people working, and I always say it takes really a village, like that saying, to make this happen. Because I'm so thankful for the Florence project. They're being one of my favorite people. And oh my God, Roxana, what a story it might be. It's just, I'm a migrant myself. A lot of you know a little bit of my story. Of course, I'm not gonna go into details because it's a long story, but I migrated 40 years ago, and it was in 1980, and it was in a hot summer of 1980 in July with 117 degrees. And we were fleeing the Civil War in my country. And I was only 19. So talking about being kids and not having that childhood, But I migrated due to that, because I wanted to go to college, and it was not okay to do that. I would have been killed. So in my tragedy, it was 45 of us Salvadorian, they left. And we were left in the Lukeville area, which is the Oregon Pipe area in Arizona, by our smuggler. And 13 Salvadorians died, including 3 minors, 12, 14, and 16. And that is a story that will always mark my life until I go, because it's painful and you can get rid of that. And, but I was one of the lucky ones to survive, right? Talking about luck. But it is just not my, it was not my time. But due to that, I came across to the sanctuary movement with John Five. And many of you know him. He's the founder of the sanctuary movement. He's, I tease him because I tell him he is my father, my adoptive dad. But it is, you know, so I have been involved in this work for many years. And then I think as part of healing for any of us that went through this, and people tell me, how do you do this? How you take care of yourself? And I say, well, every day is a new day. And we have to get up knowing that we're gonna have so many challenges, knowing that we're gonna have a lot of good stories and very painful stories, because you don't know. So I now the director of an organization, it's called Salvavision. And it was created in 2016 when times start getting really, really rough. You know, and a lot of us don't tell our stories. It's not because we're embarrassed, it's because maybe you're not ready. And you have to talk when you're ready. And that's what happened to me. For many years, I was involved, but pretty much no one knew what happened to Dora until this past 5 years. I felt the need to speak out. Like Rosanna was saying in Mighty, we have to be the voice for the voiceless. And I thought telling my story, it will bring awareness that things really not had changed from 40 years. Things has actually worse. It is more punishment for our brothers and sisters. So the way I manage this, the way I work this is, you know, just work every day with our organization. The things we do with Salvavision is we do prevention, awareness, and support. The prevention is we try through awareness to, you know, talk to our brothers and sisters wherever we see them, of the deterrence of the desert, of the dangers of the desert. And sometimes I get to share a little bit of my story, but I have to be at the moment with them because they do have their faith. They do have the courage. They do have the strength. And you can tell them not, I will never ever tell nobody not to do whatever they want to do. It's their choice. I will also was my choice, but it's my obligation to tell them the dangers that they can about to face, not only in the desert, but also with the organized crime, which exploits them every single day. They have no soul. I mean, those type of people have no soul. So I tell them, you know, they do not care if you have a brand new baby crossing the desert with you, or you are pregnant, because next to me, I had a woman who died who was pregnant in my tragedy. So we do a lot of that. And support, we support the shelters around the border towns, bringing donations, bringing our presence, being there. And I was not in a lot with Rosanna and Mighty because a lot of the work I have done, and Bob too, morning Bob, he is my brother. We done a lot of work with you guys. You know, we are being present in the detention centers, more so before the pandemic. I was going in person and do intakes for No More Death, for the keeping Tucson together. And with that, trying to find them some, you know, help, some legal aid. And as soon as the pandemic hit, how it was so painful because we were continuing doing intakes by phone. So we no longer had that face-to-face, you know, interaction. And oh my God, hold their hands. And so many times I got reprimanded at the detention center for giving them a hug. And I said, I don't care. I mean, I just hugging them because these people need a hug and I need a hug from them to rejuvenate myself, right? It was a big no-no, but that's okay. We were never got kicked out, right, Bob? Because I usually found him at the Eloy Detention Center talking to the women in there and being their support. So that's one of the things we're done. We do a lot of day in, day out activities, situations. We have a group of asylum seekers that did not have sponsors. So I really became the sponsor for almost 50 families, 50 people in detention. Or now with Florence project that they had this program in remote areas, I already have like 4 families that had nobody in the States. So they said, we just need a name and an address. And I said, okay, give in mine. So now I don't know what to do because I had to find housing for them. But hey, things always come around pretty well because we work together. I want to be, I want to talk just a little bit about, yes, Title 42 is being a crime. It's criminal, it's against the law, it's not okay. They're just taking, as we all know, they take the right to tell your story. They take the right to our brothers and sisters and their children to have a due process to present themselves. So my eyes have seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people being the return. I don't like the word expulsion because we're talking about humans. We're talking about, people. And last year in September 16, I was visiting the little town of Sasabe, Sonora, bringing donations. And I was approached by one of the government's director's office, the school group Obeta. And he just, got a hold of us in the street giving donations. And he says, can I talk to you? So he says, we have a crisis in here. This little town has never been a deportation town. And right now, since April, with the pandemic, we have been receiving 150 migrants a day, whereas that town has no resources, has no transportation, has no medical, has no hospital, no shelter. It has nothing. So what I saw was something that, just like, how can we allow this to happen? This is just not okay. Sending hundreds and hundreds of people to a border town where the only support they can find is the organized crime. Because it's not even transportation from that small town to 45 minutes to the town where it's buses if they want to go back to their home country. So for I was lucky to have with me that day Samaritans, a Tucson Samaritan person, a Green Valley Samaritan, and a Sister Judy from Douglas. So we were 5 women and we said, okay, what do we need to do? So, hey, we started the work. We sent a big email. We started receiving very generous donations to support this because the only thing he was asking was a bottle of water, a hot sandwich, and a bar to give these migrants who have been in the desert sometimes for 4 or 5 days with their feet destroyed, blisters and blisters, dehydrated. So it was very inhumane. So we started, making like 700 bags of food a week. So we would go back and forth 3 times a week to deliver this. That's how we started in Sasabe. And we're just for that came alive because one day we were coming back and I said, you know what we're doing is only putting a little Band-Aid in this wound, large one. We're really not doing what we're supposed to do. So I said, we're gonna bring our friends from social media. So we're lucky to have a lot of reporters that want to know our story. And oh my goodness, we brought them in. We brought the NPR, the Intercept, New York Times. We were in the front page of the New York Times with this UN crisis that is a humanitarian crisis in that area. So we brought them in within 2 weeks after the New York Times reported that deportation in that site stopped. We got probably like 10 to 20 people a week, you know, from January to now. And the only thing we were asking them was to, I mean, of course, we're fighting to end Title 42. We have a long way to go, right, Roxana and Mighty? It was a long way to go. We're still fighting for that. But we wanted it to have them to be sent to areas where, you know, Nogales, Agua Prieta, where they can have help, where they can have resources, where somebody could be waiting for them. So due to that, after we finished that, we were delivering donations in the environment where it was very, very cold, right, Raj? Very cold, and we're outside in a table delivering donations. So we said, well, maybe a resource center, maybe a place. And, you know, we start working with the community of Sasabe because you need to work with the community and you have to welcome you. It is their home, it is their place. So all I got to do is meet with the mayor of the town, talk to them about our idea or what we want to bring to the community, not only to migrants, not only to people that returnees, but also to the community because they're in so much need. So they come us May 1st, we open our resource center. It's a beautiful sanctuary place for migrants who cross, who go through the area. Now they at least have a place to shower. They have a place to get a change of clothes. They have some information. We have been able to work with the Florence project in the new program they had in remote areas, getting people across. I mean, we already have beautiful, successful stories. The women that was waiting in there with her daughter. She was one of the first ones to cross from Sasabe. So Salvavision is busy. We are every day, like I said, every day is a new day. Every day brings us happiness, but also brings us a lot of challenges. But one thing I know that thanks to everybody like Bob and everybody, I'm gonna give him some time. And the person you saw behind me is my daughter. She is my right hand in Salvavision. Our organization is not very big, but we have all our sisters organization. And I just feel so good because they say, you're not alone, we're here with you. And, you know, we're talking about the Tucson Samaritans, Humane Borders, No More Death, and also Casa Salitas, who provide donations for us to deliver. Madres and Hijos is a very new organization who she's bringing the beautiful work to women in the shelters like this to embroider so they can sell that and support themselves. So it is a beautiful community. I take care of myself by loving myself first, because if I don't have nothing to share. And then, you know, my story to life by being present with my brother and sister and say, I walked your shoes. I know what you're saying, but of course your shoes are different than mine, but I am here for you. I don't care what's going on. I am here for you. And it's a great relationship. Sometimes it goes for a long time. Sometimes it's very short relationship, but it is amazing. I'm gonna give Bob a few minutes, if you let me, to share what we're doing together for my medical team.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dora. Oh, sorry, Mary Jane.
No,
just
go
want to say,
ahead,
can you just introduce your daughter since she's working with you? Is she there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm listening. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Sounds
She has her
great.
Salvavision shirt. This is Anna. See?
I'm Anna. Hi.
Awesome.
She is amazing.
Anna,
All the work we do together. Yes.
thank you for joining us. That is marvelous. And thank you all for sharing your stories, because I mean, they sustain us, they fuel us, they validate us, and so thank you so much for all of that. Mary Jean, I'm sorry, I think
No,
I
you're
talked over
doing
you.
just fine. We got kicked off the computer, so.
I know there are probably other questions, so
But we are out of time, but we're so grateful for all of you. And Bob, I know you're on, and Bob works with the Florence Project also, and with Dora. So thank you all. So I think, Bob, is it okay? We'll bring you on at another time.
That's fine.
Okay, thanks so much for getting Dora
thank you all.
for you all. Thank you all so much. It was just excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The good work.
Thank you. Thanks so
you,
much for
everyone.
joining.
Thank you for your kind words, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to connecting and continuing to share our work. It's
Oh,
special.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
guys so much. And thank you, Dora and Bob, for what you guys do. It
Yeah,
does
we'll
take a
put
village.
our
Thank you.
Salvavision website, and people want to go in there and see the